In today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement, we're talking about 7 things to be on the lookout for if you plan to DIY your retirement plan. And this is all going to be about Roth conversions and all the things to look at with Roth conversion. We know Roth conversions can be very complex. A lot of people can really simplify and think it's a really easy decision. If they think that, they may be missing things. So we're going to break it down so you know exactly what you need to be looking for as you make this decision moving forward. And so let's get rolling on today's episode.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
Now, when it comes to making Roth conversion decisions, it can be really hard to do without software. So if you are a DIYer, we know that many of those do not have software. So we're going to try to make this video more understanding for those that may not have those advanced capabilities at their fingertips to make these decisions. And so when it comes to these 7 things to understand as well, these can change. This is not just to set it and let it go. This is something that with our clients, we're changing very frequently. We put together 10 to 30 year tax plans for them, but it's all going to be based on tax rules and what's going on in the picture. For example, One Big Beautiful Bill changed a lot of these scenarios. This meant that we thought we were going to be more aggressive with it with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring in 2026, but now that has got extended, this has given us more opportunities to not have to be as aggressive. We still have to do pretty hefty Roth conversions for our clients who have $1 million or more and a pension, but this allows us a little bit of more opportunity to do it more efficiently. So let's get into the 7 points here. So the first thing when looking at DIY and your Roth conversions is to be aware of your pension. We talk about pensions quite frequently on this YouTube channel. If you have a pension, congratulations, you're in a great position. But taxes are likely going to be your biggest expense in retirement because of that. So great thing to have, but also it's going to be a big problem from that standpoint. We'll pay our taxes as long as we're, getting more income, obviously. But this is something that you can plan efficiently through a strategy like a Roth conversion to lower your lifetime tax bill. So understand that you're going to have a higher income with those pensions. Understand it's going to force a lot of things to become more of an issue, and we're going to break those down in this video. But also understand that a Roth conversion for someone with a pension is probably more likely going to make sense than someone who doesn't have a pension. I mean, just think about it. If you have $1 million in a pension, you may be in the same tax bracket or higher throughout your retirement versus maybe your friend who only has $500,000. Maybe they don't have a pension. They only have Social Security. They may not need to do any Roth conversions because if they take out from their retirement accounts in retirement, they may be under the standard deduction, which means it's tax-free. And so understand your situation is unique. And it's going to need more advanced tax strategy with that. So that's the number one thing to think about when you do your Roth conversion is don't listen to everything out there. Some people will tell you not to do a Roth conversion. Some people will tell you to do very little. But if you have that pension, for most of our clients, we're looking at doing a Roth conversion. And for some of our clients, we have to be a little bit more aggressive with Roth conversions, knowing that we're always going to have that guaranteed income stream for life. And so for many of our clients, we're looking at bumping up in those bit of a higher tax bracket when we make these decisions. The second thing to be aware of is Social Security taxation. So obviously with that pension, you're going to more likely have Social Security taxable. Some of you will have 85% of your Social Security become taxable as income, and that's going to be probably for the most of you, but many of you who end up in that Social Security tax torpedo where only maybe half of your Social Security is taxable, but then if you take a withdrawal from your investments, now it's all taxable, could find ways to reduce your Social Security tax in the future. So what we encourage you to do in this scenario is think about what your income is today. Maybe you're not taking Social Security. Maybe that's a reason to delay Social Security to 70 so you can do more Roth conversions and be able to convert more in the lower tax brackets. And so these are all decisions that we need to make as we plan for what Social Security could be in the future. And then understand where are you going to be at when you start claiming Social Security. And if you're taking a lot of your income from a Roth as an example versus tax deferred, you could probably keep some of your Social Security less taxable in those scenarios. So understand this is going to be more unique with a pension. For many clients without a pension, they may be able to live that tax-free retirement we talked about by just strategically taking out money and keep their provisional income at a low enough amount to keep it under standard deduction. And that may not be realistic for you, obviously. The third thing to be aware with Roth conversions is Medicare premiums. Now, Medicare premiums can play a part now and also in the future. So it's all depending on your age. So if you are 63 or older, you need to be worried about Medicare premiums on your Roth conversions today. Even though you won't start Medicare until 65, it's a 2-year look back. And so at 65, they're going to look at your income at 63 to decide how much you're going to pay. And you could pay the base tier, you could pay a little more or more or more. And so it's all going to be based on your income at that point. And so what we see with our clients, if they're under 63, this could be reasons to do more Roth conversions. Maybe you go all the way up to the higher brackets during this time, knowing you don't have that additional cost. It could save you $10,000. I've done another video on this concept in Medicare premiums by converting earlier if you're to that point. And if you are 63 or older, understand that, hey, it's not the end of the world. Yes, we may have missed opportunities, but we can't change it. You can't rewrite the past. You can only move forward. And so still understand there's some great opportunities moving forward, especially knowing Medicare's in trouble. Medicare may increase their costs as they've done over the history of Medicare. It's been 7% price increases per year. Also understand that they're projecting it to be a 6% increase per year moving forward, which is higher than inflation. And so this is likely going to be a big cost since Medicare is in trouble. And I'm also concerned that they could lower those Medicare tiers so that more people are likely to pay more in it. So the more we can have towards a Roth, an example, is going to protect us from higher Medicare costs in the future. So you have to weigh these decisions. Now, when it comes to Medicare premiums, though, understand that if you are 63 or older, you may force yourself to pay more Medicare premiums today to do these Roth conversions. And a lot of people get scared by that. We're actually here to encourage you that that can make sense, knowing it could save you a lifetime of more Medicare costs for only paying it for 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 years potentially. And so you have to run the numbers on that to decide what makes the most sense. So don't be scared by that, but definitely make sure you're factoring it when making decisions. Now let's talk about the tax brackets. So as I just explained, I wanted to wait to talk about the tax brackets when looking at Roth conversions because I wanted to explain some of the other things that play a part outside of the tax bracket. So a lot of people think, hey, I'm going to go up to the 12% bracket. Well, if you go up to the 12% bracket, that's great, but you force Social Security to become fully taxable, so you're actually paying an all-in tax of above 12% than what it could have been if you didn't do maybe that Roth conversion at that time. And so there's a lot of things and factors to consider. Also, some people think, hey, I'll convert to the top of the 24% bracket. Well, what about the Medicare premiums associated with that? So you should never just always go to your top of your bracket. There's always some other things to consider. And we're going to talk about a few more on our list here today after this point. But when it comes to Roth conversions with our clients with pensions and $1 million plus, a lot of times we're eyeing that 24% bracket. Now, if it's reasonable to do 12%, that could make sense. It's something that we always want to fill up that 12% in most cases. But understand, pension, Social Security, RMDs in the future are likely always going to put you around that 22 to 24% for most of the clients that we work with. Knowing that, wouldn't we rather just pay 24% today, knowing that's a pretty reasonable historical tax rate when looking back in time? And also knowing that if all of our dollars in tax deferred, that tax diversification could make sense to do it into Roth. But here's the other consideration. How much do you have in tax deferred investments? Most of our clients have $1 million plus there. And so if you have $3 million in tax deferred, if you just see a 10% return per year, which is very generous, that's $300,000 of market growth per year. Your $3 million is now $3.3 million. And if you just get a 5% rate of return, that's still $150,000 of gain. So if you think that you'll get by going to the 12% bracket and only converting 50 or maybe 100,000 at the most without a pension, then you could do around 100,000, but you're not really making a dent, and you're always going to see having way more in your tax deferred. And so a lot of our clients, because they haven't done Roth yet, have some catching up to do. Now, if you've already done a lot to Roth, maybe you don't have to go up to the 24%. So it's all going to be based on what your situation is. But understand that with the 24% bracket today, you can convert up to $425,000 if you're married and stay in that 24%. And that's going to factor in other income as well. So you may not be able to convert $425,000. Maybe your pension's $100,000. Now you can only convert $325,000, back it down for Social Security. But you get the idea. If your income's, $100,000, that's still a ton of room to convert at a reasonable rate and get ahead of that. Plus all that growth is tax-free moving forward. And again, if you're under 62 or 63 and not taking Social Security or Medicare, this could be a great opportunity to start shifting a lot down so that when you get 5 years out to those ages, then now when you pull money out from the Roth, you're not worrying about those extra costs associated with that. And now your bracket's going to be a little lower because, in the future, you're worried about tax rates going up. So what if the 24% turns into the 30% bracket? That's a risk of not converting today. But also, what if tax rates stay the same forever? Let's just use that scenario. If that's the case, well, in the future, you're probably still going to have to pay Medicare premiums, which is going to bump up your rate even more, knowing that you're going to factor that in to the calculation. So you can see how this can make a lot of sense to make sure we're getting really aggressive with this right now. And again, you're probably not hearing this from other places because remember, your situation is different. The fifth thing to understand is capital gains. And so capital gains has different brackets. So 0%, 15%, and 20%. Most people are going to be in that 15% capital gains bracket. But this is important to know, especially if you're going to be in those lower income brackets when making these decisions. You may force your capital gains to become 15% when you thought it was going to be 0%. So just make sure you're being really efficient there. With a lot of our clients that have non-retirement dollars that factor in capital gains, we typically want to see them be very tax smart with those investments. We typically don't want to see mutual funds where there's phantom gains and capital gains and dividends reinvesting each year and causing your income to be higher without you being able to plan for that. So that could be something you want to get ahead of by maybe looking at ETFs, exchange traded funds, or index funds, which are more passive, do not trade as much, it's a little more control. Or even if you're really trying to do this strategically, looking even at a portfolio of individual stocks to where you can do tax loss harvesting, and when an investment goes down, you sell it off so you can capture that loss and offset gains, and look to be really strategic with that type of approach. And so just understand that that's going to help you with Roth conversion planning. So a lot of our clients do have some assets in taxable accounts where if they don't touch it, it's going to affect their decisions that they make. And so being tax smart with it will help with this scenario. The sixth thing to consider when you're Roth converting, if you're a DIYer, is what are the legacy goals you have? And maybe you have no legacy goals, and that's going to factor into your decision. But let's say you want to leave money to your children. If you want to leave your money to your children, we have to consider a few different concepts. What are their tax rate and what's yours? So let's say you have a pension of $1 million and you're going to be in a higher income situation, but maybe your children are teachers in a lower income scenario. Well, if your main goal is legacy planning, we may not want to be as aggressive on Roth conversion because they can take that money out in retirement, potentially at lower tax brackets, could be a real scenario there. So you have to play that understanding, and that may not be the case for everyone, but a big concern here is that you do have to take out the IRA in 10 years for the children, and that's where the Roth can make sense in those scenarios to be a little more tax efficient. So you just have to weigh those options and then decide what makes the most sense for you. And the seventh point that we want to mention here is when it comes to the widow's penalty. And so this is a big consideration for the clients that we work with who are married couples. And the big reason why is because you go from married filing jointly to single tax brackets when one spouse passes, which can lead to you nearly paying double the amount of taxes. And so with a lot of our clients, we want to plan ahead of this. We want to make sure that we can do these Roth conversions before that time happens to make sure we can utilize these married filing jointly brackets. And now could be a great time to do that with the lower tax brackets as well, as we've talked about, and for all the other reasons that we've mentioned so far in the video. And understand that not only do the tax brackets nearly double, all the other scenarios we talked about, their Social Security benefits going to become more taxable. They're going to have to potentially pay more in Medicare premiums because the tiers get cut in half. Tax brackets, all of those things combined could lead to them paying all in more taxes in retirement versus if they have a Roth, now they take it from it tax-free and they could be in a better position moving forward. And so with that being said, I hope these 7 reasons will be helpful for you as you make this Roth conversion decision. And if you're really looking for additional guidance on this, subscribe to our channel. We do videos like this all the time. We make this content a little more sophisticated, a little more advanced for that DIYer to make sure they can get the stimulation they're looking for so they can best plan moving forward. And if you haven't yet, you can request my book called I Hate Taxes. A lot of DIYers have said it was the best book they've ever written. And I don't say that to boost my ego. I just say that that's truly what they've said when it comes to tax planning in retirement. So if you'd like to request it, if you watch for this long, go ahead in the description below. You can click on a link and throw in your address there and we'll send you out a free copy of that book so you can have some more resources on that moving forward. So with that being said, that's all I've got on today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement, and we'll see you on the next one.